What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to My Social Life. This is the podcast where you can hear the real stories behind the people on social media. I'm your host, Jacob Kelly. As always, today's podcast is powered by Trufan. And today on the podcast, we are joined by Gary Haase, also known as the King of Pokemon, and Gary from Pawn Stars. He is the man with the world's most expensive Pokemon collection. After years of collecting and building his reputation on eBay, Gary made an appearance on Pawn Stars, which today is the second most viewed segment in show history with over 11 million views. He has started to become a recurring guest on massive YouTube channels as well, including Leonhart, Anthony Padilla from Smosh, and most recently Logan Paul. And I'm very excited to have Gary here on the podcast today to talk all things Pokemon. Gary, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Jacob. It's great to be here with you and your community. I appreciate you asking me.
I appreciate you taking time to come on the podcast. And where I want to start today, I want to go all the way back to the beginning, bring back to 1954. From my understanding, you have been collecting your entire life. It started with Mad Magazine, Silver Age comics, things like that. But none of your family was collectors as far as I'm aware. So what about collecting was so appealing to you?
I guess I guess there's no such thing as a collector's gene. I'm not sure. But you're right. Nobody in my family collected anything. In fact, they couldn't wait to throw things out to keep things neat and clean. My mom and dad. My brother had no interest in collecting stuff. But I was hooked from the very beginning. My earliest recollection was collecting bottle caps that had football players' faces on the inside of the bottle caps. And you can still find some of those on eBay. I guess they were pretty mass produced. But, as a 5-year-old or so, I collected my favorite team at the time. I lived in Los Angeles Rams, bottle caps with their faces on them. So, yeah, all the way from the very beginning, I never stopped. I've been collecting something of almost everything, ever since.
Mm-hmm. And there's a saying that came up during your childhood that I wonder if you could give me a little bit more, or give my audience a little more context on. And that saying is drugstore cowboys. Can you talk about the significance of that saying?
I sure can. My father was a real old school type. He was born in 1921, just after World War One. He was in the Coast Guard during World War II. He was brought up by a super disciplinarian mother and father, German heritage. Uh, uh, he wasn't the hugging type. He wasn't the "I love you, Gary" type. He was just a typical man of the time, and very opinionated. What he felt was right was what was right. Period. And so, one of my greatest lessons I learned from him was the drugstore cowboy story, and that was when the Beatles came out. When I first saw them in 1963, I loved them. I thought they were great, and I mean we all did back then, all the young people. And yet my dad said, "Oh, it's awful. Turn off that noise. They're nothing but drugstore cowboys and things like that." In a derogatory way, which was like him. Uh, but I told myself that then I was only like 10, 12 years old, that if I ever had a son, if I ever had children, I was going to support them no matter what they liked. And I'm talking about rap music, things that are way, way after my time. I don't care, Eminem or 50 Cent or Steve Aoki, with his dance music. I don't care what it was. I was going to support them with their loves. And because I remember how bad I felt, not having that support from my dad.
Okay. And ultimately, like you said, you stuck to that promise you made to yourself as a boy. And one of those loves for your kids was Pokemon. But correct me if I'm wrong, before they really kind of fell in love with Pokemon in the hobby, you got involved in Pokemon in the late 90s, 98, 99, to bring Pokemon over to the United States for the first time, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was part of a group, financial side, that you know, Pokemon was world famous before it ever hit our shores, and it was such a phenomenon in Japan. And there were such great stories and things that happened with their cartoons, and then when the Game Boys, when they had the Game Boys come over, the fun the kids had. I mean, I just knew that this was something different. This was something not just special, but extra special. So I had never seen anything like it with any other collectible or any other thing I had seen in the past. There was nothing that had the, and then when it hit our shores, it was like when the Beatles hit the shores of the United States in 1963. Everybody went crazy. And so it was like the second coming of the Beatles, which was a crazy time, crazy experience. But here, this was just for a little child's card game, and yet it had that kind of attraction. So I knew from then on that this was not going away, that this was something special, that that if we could get some of it over here to the United States, the Japanese promos, like the CD promos and some of those things, get them on the Home Shopping Network, they would be a smash, which they were. But then I was kicked out soon after because Media Factory in Japan, they realized how big it was going to be worldwide, so they wanted to control it and keep it all for themselves. So I was out, we were out, but then my boys got them and all the kids got them, and that's kind of how it happened.
Mhm. And so you're known today as the man with the most expensive collection, but you're also known by a wide margin, the person with the best Charizard collection on the planet. And I'm curious if you can tell my audience the story as to why it's Charizards, because from my understanding, Venusaur is actually your favorite Pokemon, but despite that, you focus on collecting Charizards. Why is that?
Yeah, pretty much. Charizard was the main man. When the base set came out, my son, uh, even though my favorite was Venusaur, my youngest son loved Charizard. He was about 8 years old at the time, and I mean, he would go to sleep with his Charizard, with it never leaving his grasp, and uh, collecting his memories, and that's my fondest memories of Pokemon. It's one of my fondest memories of my children's young years. Was the attraction that he had towards that Charizard, that Pokemon card. And so anytime I got Charizards, I saved them, and we saved them together, and we had binders. We filled every page with Charizards, and because that's what he loved. Because remember, I promised myself as a 10-year-old that I was going to support, no matter what they liked, I was going to support it. And I overdid it, obviously. I mean, I ended up with binders of all Charizards, but then it didn't turn out to be so stupid after all.
Mhm. And so I've heard you say that eventually your boys discovered girls and they started focusing on girls more than Pokemon.
You see, Jacob, I had a girl at the time. So I was safe in my Pokemon hobby. Yeah, you're right. The boys found girls, and I'm afraid Pokemon took a back seat.
But then I'm curious, it didn't take a backseat for you though. So what was it about the hobby that kept you all these years?
Mainly because of the memories of it, because it was my children's young years, and it was the bonds that we built, from then. And then I got involved, buying and selling, and all the fun with the parents. And I mean, it was just a 100% healthy hobby. It was just fun for everybody. You didn't have the baseball collectors where you had the steroids, where you had the Mark McGuires and the Barry Bonds, and the disappointments in the football, the OJ Simpsons. You know, those guys disappointed us, when because we were so much into those hobbies. Well, Charizard was never going to beat his old lady, and so it was a safe hobby, but it was fun, and I always had that connection, to my boys because of it. I mean, here it is, 21 years later. My son and I were just in the front room taking pictures, for his Instagram, taking pictures of, Typhlosion 17 uh, and the Lugia, first edition Lugia, Neo Genesis, and all the rarest cards I have, he was taking pictures with to eventually get on his Instagram, and posing me in the backyard, in the front yard. Still, that's all wrapped around the hobby, wrapped around Pokemon.
I was wondering if you could bring me back to 2002, I believe, in Pickerington, Ohio. You're doing a box break as far as I'm aware, and you pulled 3 base edition Charizards. Can you kinda tell me just what's going through your mind as you pull 1 and then 2 and then the 3rd one?
Yeah, well, another thing with Pokemon and with the hobby, you make connections and you make friends, and I'm talking about the best people in the world are involved in this hobby. I mean, I've been a devoted hobbyist in a lot of in a lot of different areas my whole life. I've never seen anything like it than I have with Pokemon. So I met a friend who loved the shadowless cards. This was pre-designation, before PSA designated them, and he loved shadowless. This was about 2002, and he loved to share them with his little son Jacob. His name was Joel, and he told me, he said, "Hey, listen, Gary, why don't you come out here to Ohio and we'll open up an antique store together?" Well, at the time, I was just running a casino hotel, so I said, "Yeah, that sounds like more fun. Let's do that." So I moved the whole family back to Columbus, near Columbus, Pickerington, like you said, and him and I together, we were. Now he was a little younger than me, but not much. So he was maybe, like today, he's probably 55 or 60. Uh, so he was no kid then, but he had little kids, and so we, constantly, would get Pokemon, and we would collect, and we, all the normal stuff. And then one day we bought a first edition base box together. I think it was around two or three thousand $2,000 or $3,000 for a sealed first edition base box. It was somewhere in that area. And then we decided to open it. So we were at his house in his little den, and my son, who was over here today, and he's on Instagram, Devin, he was there, and we started opening those packs. Yeah, the first Charizard came out, and we nearly hit the ceiling because, I mean, that was the chase card, right? And then a few packs later, we got a second Charizard and just couldn't believe it. I was speechless, couldn't even react. And then we kept pulling and pulling, and then one of the last second or third pack from the end, a third first edition base Charizard. And I mean, needless to say, we just went absolutely wild. Well, I was already grading at the time. I was grading cards in 1994, baseball cards. So I was very familiar with PSA. They knew me. I helped them with Pokemon stuff, consultation. So the cards all looked beautiful, like a lot of first edition base are beautifully cut, brand new blades they started using. And so we sent them into PSA, and as God is my witness, all three came back PSA 10s. Three PSA 10s out of one $2,000 to $3,000 Pokemon box. And they came back sequentially. So I always know which three those are, because of that.
That's just an incredible story. Because today those 3 cards are worth over $1,000,000 if I'm not
It's
mistaken.
probably right in that area.
That's
Isn't
amazing.
that something?
Yeah. And you mentioned how the shadowless cards weren't designated at that time, but from my understanding, you were the one who actually got them designated in around 2007. Is that true?
Yes, I tried. I tried year after year, and then heavily the last year, where I just Joe Orlando, who was the president of PSA, now he's CEO of the parent company, Collectors Universe. Uh, I bugged him personally, his personal phone, his for a year, saying this is insane. This is an unbelievable. The base set is amazing, and this is a huge part of the base set. And anyway, after, yeah, I think it was around that time, 2007 maybe, where finally I got the call. Okay, Gary, we're going to be designating the shadowless. Can you send us some information, some additional information? Which I did. And I was so happy because back in 1999, I used to go to all the shows, and nobody paid attention to shadowless. But for some reason, I was attracted to them because they looked like the first edition to me. And so I would go through everybody's binder, like the Frank and Son show in Los Angeles. There are 100 booths with, tons of binders, and I would take all the shadowless, ended up with stacks of shadowless cards, and because I liked them. So that was 99. By 2007, 8 years later, I was just exhilarated that they started designating that. And it's almost like every time I look at the shadowless case now, I see my name there instead of shadowless. That's how important that, how big that was to me. And I get a lot of people even today thanking me for that.
I bet,
Saying,
yeah.
Gary, it's really, they love the shadowless. They say it's great you did that, went to all that work, and just want to let you know we appreciate it. So that's an ongoing pleasure for sure.
I bet. And from my understanding too, so that was 2007, but a couple years before that, from about 2002 to 2005, the hobby and Pokemon as a whole kind of experienced a downturn. And you spent hours on the phone with your friend. I have it written down. I believe it was eBirdman 102, another top collector, trying to figure out ways to bring the hobby back. Two-pronged question from that is one, why did Pokemon experience a downturn then? And what are some things that you guys came up with to help bring it back to prominence?
When the EX series came out, interest was waning a bit. Those kids like my son, suddenly they were, 14, 15 years old, uh, and had other interests. And the releases, even though this is a little controversial, I think the releases were a little bit weak, for the time, and especially for the players, because I think part of the success is because of the game and because as a collectible. So I mean, why it all happened, plus the negative news articles, so many negative news articles saying, the fad is over, just another beanie baby. That all really hurt because I knew it was so much more than that because I was there in the beginning. So I knew what it was. I knew it was no beanie baby. I knew it was nothing like that. It was just going through a lull, which is not unusual for collectibles. And and then, yeah, E. Birdman, his name, Eddie Brenneschultz, he and I must have done 1,000 deals together. We went partners on so many things. We talked every single night. And when the downturn came, we tried to strategize to see what it would take for us to improve it. So probably the best thing we came up with was to really concentrate on the collectors, get PSA to grade all these cards. At the time, you could type in PSA Pokemon, you'd find 20 cards, and 10 would be mine, 10 would be Eddie's. And that would be it. So we thought, well, I mean, yet him and I probably had thousands of PSA cards because we loved that as being part of the collectible hobby. And we knew other people would too. And so we decided, let's start getting these orders in. We sent in thousands and thousands of cards. Anytime somebody would ask for a raw one, we'd send a nice card. We'd send a free, cheaper graded card. Anything that we could do to get PSA grades in front of the collectible base, we did, and it was successful. It was success. I'd say within 6 months, 6 months to a year, it leveled off. The hobby quit dropping, and all of a sudden, you looked on eBay, PSA Pokemon, you found 1,000 cards, and then you found 10,000. Today, you'll find over 1,000,000 cards. So I think that played a real big part of it, Jacob. I don't think it gets the credit. You get a lot of criticism from PSA and a lot of deserved credit because of turnaround times and such now. But I'm telling you, without PSA and without Eddie's and my, diligence, about using it, I don't think Pokemon would have survived because there wasn't much reason for it too. Because now they were, uh, they got Wizards of the Coast, lost the franchise, and Nintendo picked it up, and they weren't all that enthusiastic. And uh, but suddenly, enthusiasm grew, and so they couldn't ignore it. Suddenly, some of these other sets started. At the end of WotC, with Sky Ridge and Aquapolis was pretty nice. And then after that, the subsequent sets through Pokemon International or Nintendo, they were actually really, really cool. Really cool cards. Great for players. Collectors had fun. So I think that's a big part of the story. And Eddie is an OG. I mean, he's not that well. He's known as a seller, but he's not as much out there as I am. You won't find him on interviews and stuff like that. He's a little more reserved, I think. But boy, oh boy, does he deserve credit.
And up until I couldn't find a ton of content and interviews from you up until the Pawn Stars appearance. So were you kind of similar to Eddie, where you weren't doing a ton of interviews up until around that point?
I was real big in the community. Even back then, I went to worlds, I went to regionals. You know, people knew me. Uh, I think I was really super popular even before that. In fact, that's how they found me. And Pokemon Go. This was like November around 2016. Pokemon Go had come out earlier in the year, and Pokemon, started going up, and then it leveled off with Pokemon Go, started going down a little, and then I got the opportunity to do the Pawn Stars, and I knew I wouldn't sell my cards, but I knew that it would attract attention, and so I didn't know it was going to attract that much attention though, but I did know it was going to help, and so I said I would do the show. It was a setup, me going on the show. They arranged it in advance and all that. But once I got there, the negotiation was real, and I could have sold or not sold. He could have made a right offer or not made a right offer. That was all legitimate. Being on the show, though, was set up for me because they wanted something Pokemon, because Pokemon Go was so big. And so, yeah, but once that hit, suddenly I became more popular. And so, because that a lot of people watch that show anyway, and now they saw me and they saw $500,000 in cards, and suddenly those people went scrambling for their binders, went through their basements and their attics, got called their children, where are your Pokemon cards, let's see what's going on, are these worth anything? All the messages I got through eBay, 100 a day, is this worth anything, is this a good card, should I have this graded, what grade will this get, how much is this worth? Oh my God. So it really blew up after that episode for sure.
And you said how the negotiation itself was entirely real, but what about there's almost like a scene before the negotiation where like Rick and Chumley are kind of talking. Was that set up or scripted at all? Because like I watched it and bless those two guys, but they're definitely not actors. So was everything kind of leading up to the negotiation a bit staged, but the negotiation itself was real?
Now, the fact that Rick was there and that Chumley was there was absolutely stay. They were there because I was there. The people wandering around that pawn shop, my son was there, my wife was there, and they picked out people from the main pawn shop to come on back, the pretty girls and stuff, to come on back. And because the actual place we filmed it was a stage, it wasn't the real pawn shop, but it was in the back of the pawn shop building. They built it in the building, and it looked like the front pawn shop, the real one. And so now their dialogue back and forth, I can't say 100% for sure, but I thought they probably set that up in advance. Pokemon, Pokemon, uh, but I don't actually know that as a fact. But I had the same impression you did.
And one question I have to ask, I'm assuming he was there already, but how long does it take for Rick to get his buddy, the guy he brings in to value the
The
cards
expert.
for him? Yeah, the expert. Thank you. How long did it take him to get there? Because Rick always has a buddy to call. So was he already there when you got there? Did he
Yes, he
actually have to
was.
call? Was there?
Yes, yeah, he was there. He was in the back in the employee lounge. I have pictures of me and my wife and son and a friend in the employee lounge. We didn't talk to him, but from the time he said, let me call in an expert. I don't know enough about these things and that, to the time that the expert came back, I'd say it was no more than about 10 minutes. Now it turns out his store is just catty corner across the street. So did he come, in most of those experts are a distance away. When he calls in the autograph experts, he doesn't even live in Las Vegas. So those they have to get him in advance. But yeah, the toy shop guy, Rogue Toys, they have like 3 branches here. Just closed one down near me. Uh, yeah, he was already there.
Mhm. And he actually, so you, Rick, so the cards got valued around 380,000, 390,000, if I'm not mistaken. You wanted 500,000. Rick ended up passing because he just said he didn't know enough about Pokemon. to sell the cards. But from my understanding, the expert actually came up to you after the show and tried to buy the cards from you. Is that true?
Yeah, he was interested. He uh, five $500,000 would have been about retail. I set that price because I knew Rick wouldn't pay it. I know he's not going to offer top retail, right? He's not going to make money. So he came up to me and he said, listen, I'd be really interested in these cars because there were like 100 PSA 10s, all Charizards. There was like 30 Beckett's 9.5s and one pristine 10, or a couple pristine 10s. Yeah, he was very interested in that, and his price of 380 might have been wholesale at the time. He probably would have paid the 380, but I told him right away, not interested in selling. But yeah, he did want them.
And then, so just for context for the audience, how much is that collection worth today? So it's about 500,000 retail at the time. Where is it at now?
It's got to be 10 times that, and the only reason I can say that is because I know I've heard estimates on other shows that they've calculated, they figured it out. So it's probably worth about, for those exact same cards. I don't have everyone the exact same collection, but for the time that would be about $5 million collection. Yeah.
That's crazy. So what's led to this surge? Why are Pokemon cards so popular now? Why are valuations going through the roof, 10xing in like a 3-year window? Like, what's leading to this?
Well, I hate to make light of the virus, uh, but I really believe that had a lot to do with it. A lot. I mean, if you don't go out to work and run your business and do your jobs and that, you're just sitting at home. What are you going to do? You're going to play on the internet. You're going to, look up things that interested you. Go on YouTube and see videos that are fun that have to do with Pokemon. Then it's going to pique your interest, and this probably happened millions to millions of people. So I really think people being sequestered at home all over the world, right? I think that had a lot to do with it.
And as a result of it becoming more popular, that's only growing your fame, your attention as well. Because as people get into the hobby, they obviously want to know who's number one, and that's you. And so you've done, I mean, even prior to this year, you've done collaborations with Leonhart. Like I said in the intro, he's got 1.1 million on YouTube today.
I
Anthony,
think him and I have done like six
yeah,
videos.
I
Yeah.
watched most of them leading up to today's podcast because I like to be
He came
prepared.
out here to Vegas. I went there to Dallas. We met in DC, and we're going to see each other at Worlds next year.
That's awesome. And I mean, one of the videos you filmed at the time, you made the single largest transaction for an individual card, right? Just shy of 6 figures. That was one of the videos you guys filmed.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So that was 2018, right?
That sounds right. That was for the second pristine 10 Charizard because I owned the only one. I won on auction for 10,800. Quite a few years ago, and that was the only pristine 10 Charizard. And then a second one got graded, and it was a lady in Dallas, and Lee Steinfeld, Leonhart lives in Dallas. He contacted me and said, "Listen, I got this lady who got the other pristine. She wants to sell it." So I couldn't have gotten on a plane quicker, and so he set up the whole thing for me, really nice, and so I got there and I bought that for a touch under $100,000. And because I wanted to have the only two in the world, I had the only one in the world. I wanted to have the only two in the world, and which brings us to a story today. I don't know if you're going to get to that later, but were you going to
Yeah,
mention a third one at all later?
I wasn't. I didn't. There's a third one now. Did you?
Now, about a month ago, are you ready for this? About a month ago, a third one popped up, got graded. But if you check the serial numbers before and after, it was obviously a binder set because it had all the first edition hollows, number 1, 2, 3, and number 5, 6, 7, 8 to 16. It had all of them. So somebody obviously had a binder and heard about the good prices and sent in all their cards to Beckett's. All those cards got 6s, 7s, mostly 8s, and won 9, I think. And then a pristine 10. The Charizard got a 10. I have people all over the country looking for that person to find out who has that card, and because I want it so bad, and I'd pay a whole lot for it. Uh, so yeah, now there's 3, and we cannot find out who has it, and we might not find out. It might just be in, somebody, looked their a childhood binder, got them graded, got lucky, got a 10, stuck them in the drawer, and that'll be the end of it, without even really realizing. That happens a lot, without even realizing what they got.
Yeah, well, I hope eventually you can get your hands on that card.
Oh, yes. And I'll tell you, I don't know if I should even mention it, but if somebody found it where I could buy it, I'd give $50,000 finder's fee.
That's amazing. That's very generous. That would be, yeah. I mean, like I said, I hope you can get that. And where I was originally going to, so you bought that card for just under $100,000. At the time, was the single largest individual card transaction in history. But you recently, fast forward 2 years, you sold a card just recently for more than that, and it wasn't to just a regular collector. You sold it to Logan Paul. And so I'm curious, what was that experience like when he came to your house and filmed that video?
Well, as you can imagine, I had like 8 of them at that point. I had 10 at one point, sold a couple I didn't like that much because of weak 10s or whatever. And so I I get tons of messages, can we buy one of your Charizards? We'll pay you this much, well over market, offers. No, 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 I'm not selling my Char. I'll never sell them, blah, blah. And then Logan Paul, I got together with him and sold him one. And I got a message that night, a guy saying, Gary, I've been your friend for years. I've been trying to buy that card for years. I've wanted to, I would have paid more than Logan Paul paid, and blah blah blah. And all I could say is, I'm sorry. I said, but you don't have 20 million followers. That's why I sold to Logan Paul. I mean, sure, he's a sweetheart. He's a totally different than what you'd expect, but he has 20 million followers. And what is that going to do for the hobby I love? Uh, it's gonna it's gonna raise it to another level. And as you've seen, that's exactly what happened. I didn't know it was going to do that much, though. Once again, I didn't know. I knew it would help. And so the only reason I sold it to Logan was because of his, popularity, because I knew it would get seen by, 5 to 10 million people, and it would help the hobby, and it has.
That's amazing. And in that video, so Logan's not the only celebrity reaching out to you. You mentioned guys like Justin Bieber, Gary Vaynerchuk reaching out to you as well. And so when they reach out to you, are they trying to buy the Charizard as well? Are there any future collabs you can kind of let us in on that you've got in the
Well,
works
well, they
potentially?
kind of they most of the other name people. I remember a lot of these people I don't even know, right? Because I'm 66 and it's not really my time. But then when my son's here, they let me know. Uh, they pretty much want the one of the pristine 10s. That's what Logan wanted initially, was a pristine 10. And yet I have 2 sons and I have 2 pristine 10s, and those will go to them. And there's no money that could change that. I mean, there is no money that could change that. That won't have ever, ever, ever happen, because it's not a money thing. And so because of that, Logan was happy to get a PSA 10, first did, which is still was a good buy for him because he bought it, and it probably doubled in price because he bought it, right? But you know what? I'm not as dumb as I look, because yes, it doubled in price, but I still had 6 or 7 more, and those all doubled in price too. So yeah, I gave up one for market of the day, and sure, it doubled in price, but it doubled all my other ones too. So I guess I'm not that dumb, but I'm not selling them anyway. Although I did sell one more, but
One thing I was gonna ask, so looking through your Instagram, you notice, and you when Logan was over, and you did this with Steve Aoki, whenever you have a high profile famous guest come to the house, you take a photo of the two of you playing Barbie. And I'm curious where that tradition started.
yeah, it's just a cute thing, a funny thing. And I not just those guys, but any guys that come over. that are, and I have visitors all the time. Being in Las Vegas, you get a lot of visitors anyway, right? It's not like being from Des Moines or something, where you're not going to get a lot of people, vacationing. Uh, but every time they come over, I always do a Barbie dream house shot, and it's just a fun thing. It's a fun thing to do. And if they won't do it, then I kick them out. So, but it's a fun thing. It's my 6-year-old daughter uh, is a Barbie fan, and so I don't let her in the shots, but we play with her Barbie.
And I mentioned Steve Aoki there. I was wondering if you could talk to me about your relationship with him.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this. This is what a tremendous gentleman this guy is. And now, yeah, he's been a neighbor, for years. Uh, but I don't know anything about DJs. I don't know anything about that line of work. Uh, Now my son did, Devin again, was a big fan, was going to EDC shows and stuff like that for years, for 10 years. Uh, but I didn't. And so when he contacted me and I saw that he had like 9 million Instagram followers, and he wanted, well, no, let me make sure I'm accurate here. Actually, the way that we actually got talking about Pokemon was somebody was trying to sell him a box, a first edition base box. And so he talked to Logan, and Logan told him to call. Well, Logan called me and said, "Can I get Steve Aoki on a three-way?" And I just said, well, yeah, I said, sure. Uh, I said, but do you know him? And he said, well, yeah, he's one of the top guys in the world in that DJ work. And I said, well, sure. So we got on the three-way, and then we started talking. He wanted to know about legitimate boxes, how to tell the difference, between legits and that. And the one that he was considering, I could tell was not legit. And uh, so he was, grateful about that. And then he invited, my family over to his house, and uh, which I did mainly because of my son Devin, because he's a hero of his. But then Steve and I started to bond and talking. And I mean, we talk every single day. We pass 10, 20 messages a day, just about all kinds of random stuff. A lot of it has to do with the charity, which you and I will discuss later. And so, I mean, you talk about just one absolutely terrific fella. Now he's only 41. He's a younger man. Uh, but I love to see young people succeed. I love young people that have dreams, and young people that will work hard, and do the due diligence, and then they get there, and then they keep it up. I love seeing that, and I wish that for all young people, including my own children. And so I respected that work ethic, because he had me watch a documentary of him, because he wanted me to get to know him a little better. And I mean, you talked about a hard worker, and yeah, so he was kind of like a young man after my own heart. He just had all the qualities that I respected, and in turn, he saw something in me too, that he loved. And so, now we call ourselves twins. So we have that one picture where we're both wearing the same Pokemon shirt, and starting with that, we call ourselves twins. And so now we'll get back to him with the charity, but yeah, but just to give you a heads up, there is no sweeter person in the world than Steve Aoki. And he loves his mother. His mother is just, Mama Aoki is just a treasure. And I saw, videos with her, and I saw my mom's eyes and her eye. My mom passed away maybe 16 years ago on my 50th birthday. And when I look at his mom, I see my mom. And so I had an immediate connection with her. And I mean, if you were to go over to Steve's house today with me, you would have to take a COVID test. He'll do everything in the world to protect his mother. And it just shows the amazing love that he has for her. And I was just telling Devin, my son, earlier, I said, anybody who loves their mother that much, loves children that much, and loves animals that much, I said, these people are just all good.
That's amazing. And I do want to talk about that charity, but I have one question before that. Steve Aoki has a ball pit in his house. Did you jump into it?
I was up on the, I don't know, I think it's about 12 feet high. And then I'm 6'3". So 12 feet, so over 18 feet from my head to the top of that ball pit. Below that, there's a whole bunch of ball pit left, right? And I'm thankful because I sunk when I jumped. I did it. I'm 66, a little overweight, and shouldn't be doing stuff like that. But I got up there and I did it, and I disappeared in the foam pit. Uh, but I certainly did. Yeah.
That's awesome. And
And my
now,
little girl, my 6-year-old, there's a trampoline you can jump on, and you can go from the big trampoline into the ball pit. You can jump, 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 and then jump into the ball pit. And so my little girl, my 6-year-old, who's autistic, right? She loves things like that. Uh, she jumped. She every single day she says, "Steve Aoki house, please. Steve Aoki house, please." And she loves his music. When we put she knows right when the drops are coming. I'm an expert now, right, on all that. I know when the drops are coming because she's all ready. She climbs up on the couch, jumps down to the floor. Right when it was time for the drop to come, she knows the rhythm. So uh, it's Steve Aoki now, but it'll be Godfather soon. She just loves him to death, and he's so sweet. He said that I have to, I have to make arrangements every time I come. But he said little Akira can come anytime she wants. But yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I did jump into that ball pit from up there. He has an outdoor pool, 16 feet deep, where 3 stories up, you can stand on the balcony of his. He has a 4-story house. On the top part, on the 4th one, all the way from up there, you can jump from there down into his 16-foot deep pool in that. And just to give a shout out, my good friend Darian Bruce, who does all of our designing work in that, and my son Devin, they jumped off of that 4 stories high, 40 feet or something ridiculous, down into the pool. So if you're a daredevil, there's stuff to do over there.
yeah, no kidding. But now tell me about your charity and the event you have coming up for. When did you start the charity? And kind of talking about the initiatives you have going on with it now.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate you asking that because there's 2 things besides my family that I care about in my life now. And that is number 1, the health of Pokemon, the health of the hobby. I'll do appearances, I'll do interviews, with people with no following, because I know it's going to help them. Anything I can do to help the hobby, that's one of my 2 priorities. The second thing, and the way it started was I had an idea to create a poster with some of the top Pokemon celebrities, content creators, on the poster, and then to mail all the posters to them, have them sign under their pictures, and then getting them all back, and then sending them back to them where they could get one to put on their wall and one to give away to somebody in their community as a giveaway. And in return, every one of them that would donate $10 would have an extra chance uh, to get that poster, which I knew would be really popular because some of these guys are super popular. Like Unlisted Leaf and Pokemon Revolution and Leonhart, Real Breaking. I mean, SM Pratt. People love them. Their communities love them, and they do an amazing job. So I knew it was going to be popular. Okay, but on a small scale, and it would all go towards autism, several different autism charities. And then I was having so much trouble getting that on because of licensing and all these restrictions and everything else. Uh, and technically, it's kind of hard to do a website with that, and all that. Anyway, there were 39 posters, by the way, which is the same number as there are Pokemon illustrators, which was the purpose of that, right?
Mhm.
So these posters, I think, are more valuable than the Pokemon illustrators. But yeah, so that's how it started. Then I started talking to Steve, saying that, is there any way, because his charity, the Aoki Foundation, deals with brain health, depression, stuff like that. And I asked him, I said, is there any way that I can join you, with my idea, and put it under the Aoki Foundation umbrella, which would immediately give me the proper paperwork, the legitimacy, because his is a very good charity. Uh, is there any way we could do that? Well, he didn't even have to wait till the words came out of my mouth. He said, Gary, you're in. He said, what do we do? What do I need you to do? What do you need me to do? How are we going to do this? And so I said, well, I explained the poster idea. And I'm going to show you that real fast, okay?
Yeah, for
Now,
sure.
on my
Please.
Instagram, I've been showing just one picture of each guy, right? This is the whole poster. And again, there's going to be 39 of these. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that.
That's awesome. I can see Leonhart there right at the top.
Yes. And those little things underneath the pictures are autograph stickers.
Yeah,
Everyone is autographed by, you see Rusty, TCA Gaming,
that's amazing.
the Pokey Jew, Michael, Unlisted Leaf. Yeah, so anyway, that's the poster. And then Steve and I started talking, and we said, box breaks. Logan had just done that box break on the first edition box. And at the same time, I got a call from one of my longtime Pokemon friends. And he said, listen, I know about your charity. I want to donate a base box to your charity, an unlimited base box, sealed in a $35,000 box. And I said, are you serious? And he said something really super nice. He said, Gary, all these years you've been so kind to me that I want to do something in return, not just for you, but for autism and for the hobby. I'm almost tearful when I think of that. And so we decided, Steve and I, to do a box break. But instead of a regular box break, we wanted to do a Pokemon celebrity and regular celebrities buy the packs, and where we take advantage of all their followers, and so it's going to be viewed a lot because there'll be donations during the break, much like what Logan did. Though I think we're going to blow his out of the water, but we'll see. You hear that, Logan? Although Logan is donating towards it too, so he's all for it. We were selling the packs for $1,000, limiting it to one or two because we have so many people that wanted in on it. And so on November 15th, the time's not set. We'll get that this week. November 15th, we'll be doing a live stream on Steve Aoki's YouTube page, if that's how you say it. And at the same time, we're going to be opening a first edition base pack. Another guy donated a first edition base pack, like a $20,000 heavy pack, to open. All the money goes to charity, goes to our charity. And so it's going to be just super exciting. The celebrities we have are people like Logan. We have professional athletes, baseball pitchers and football players and rappers. One guy, I didn't know him, but we've talked a lot now, and I love him already. Is I know his real name, but his stage name. He's a big rapper, and
Is it Logic?
Logic, right? Yeah, yeah. It's funny if you don't use what your mother called you, I don't remember. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but yeah, Logic. So he's involved. He's bought a pack, and he'll be doing shout outs. We had another great great DJ, besides Steve involved. And so and then all the Pokemon, even those not on the poster, people like Gem Mint Pokemon and Pokemon Radar, you know, but it's all Pokemon celebrity. Anyway, it's the first time there's ever been a celebrity box break. And I can't believe somebody like me could think of something so smart, because I'll tell you what, it's an incredible idea. I'm getting so much feedback from that. Everybody wants in, and so it's those two events: the box break, celebrity box break, and then after that is going to be the poster giveaways. And uh, and I'm pretty confident that after all that, we're going to shatter all records and do it for the kids with autism that just have, like I said, my daughter's autistic. And when you shut down their treatments because of COVID or that, when you shut that down, I mean, it's a major thing. It's not like your kid is going to miss half of a grade. These kids, it could affect their entire life. They make this one lady. The reason I chose that was because this one Hispanic lady, her son was severely autistic, and was making such progress over the last 2 years, and I was so impressed and so happy for him. And then one week they weren't there, and another week they weren't there, and I asked, and it's because of COVID. Both the mother and father lost their jobs, and they couldn't afford to bring the kid back. So one of the things that we're doing is money that we raise is going to go towards scholarships that will support people that fall on hard times whose kids are already in treatment, so they can stay in treatment because they have to. They just have to. And so, that's pretty much the story on the charity. It means the world to me, and every single one of your listeners, if you can keep that in your mind and just watch any of us on YouTube or Instagram, you'll be hearing a whole lot about this. And then when the time comes, open your heart, because I'll tell you what, at this point in my life, there's nothing more important than that. And had I had this feeling when I was 20, I mean, I would be rich in a very, very important way today. So, yeah, so I sure appreciate you giving me the time to push that, because it's of the two things in my life that matter. That's one of them, and I appreciate you letting me do that, Jacob.
Of course. And where else can people donate beyond the live stream and the poster? Is there just like a website they can go to donate?
Yes. Yeah, they can contact, pretty much, if they contact me, I would give them the proper PayPal link that goes to the Aoki Foundation. They can just go to the Aoki Foundation, to the main page, and there's a donate button there. But then I wouldn't know it's coming in through, through Pokemon. If they go to aokifoundation.org/Pokemon, they'll see this poster unsigned, but they'll see it close up. And then there'll be links below for all 18 of us that are on the poster. Plus, I think Steve is on there. And then they can donate, to any one of our links that all go to PayPal and all come back into the Aoki Foundation. Nothing gets touched by anybody else. Yeah, thanks for asking that. We just got that link today. It just started today. So
I'll make sure I link it in the podcast show notes as well, so people can just find it down there and go right to it.
Great. And watch the live stream on the 15th of November. You'll be hearing all about this. I've already had 3 people today. They're going to say they're going to have watch parties, because it'll be a couple-hour event, and it's going to be all Pokemon. It's just going to be tremendous. And my wife, Queen Pokemon, at Twantong Hayes, she'll be there on set. And then Josh RJ, who donated the $35,000 box, is going to be on stage. Because of his generosity, this all has come together. So yeah, if you check in on the 15th of November on Steve Aoki's YouTube, plus you'll be seeing it all over Instagram and all over. Just be there. Then you'll get all the information, all the new information on the poster giveaways. They're going to be extremely, wanted, those posters. people love to get my autograph. They say, "Can you autograph a card and send it?" Just imagine all 16 plus Logan Paul plus Steve Aoki. Just imagine how cool that is, and how great that would be to win. So,
Gary, I have 2 questions left. I know we're a little over time, so I just want to get to
oh,
them
it's okay.
super
That's fine.
quickly.
Go ahead.
Um, but next year is going to be a big year for the hobby, I can imagine. I mean, it's already riding this crazy momentum into 2021. But on top of that, next year, it's the Tokyo Olympics and the 25th anniversary of Pokemon. So you kind of speak to how big of a deal that is and kind of your involvement in some of the plans you have next year heading over into Tokyo.
It will be crazy. Everybody who asked me today, should I sell this card today? Should I do this tomorrow? I say, wait a year, because I just think it's just going to be monstrous. It's going to be so much fun next year, because the Pokemon Company is going to do some great things. I don't know how well you remember the 20th anniversary. That was pretty epic. Well, they're going to way overdo that. So that's going to do a whole lot for the game. And then the Olympics, Steve Aoki, who is world famous, but he's a god in Tokyo. He'll be performing at the Olympics, and he's already asked me to go with him, because after the Olympics, he's going to want to meet with Satoshi Tajiri, who founded Pokemon and is currently I believe, the CEO of Game Freak in Japan. And he is autistic. He's an autistic man. Our focus is on autism. Now, like everybody else in Japan, he is probably a huge fan of Steve Aoki's. So uh, we're hoping to get a meeting with him, which he doesn't do often because of his social difficulties. But if it's Steve Aoki, I think he's going to make time for him, and then with me, and he wouldn't necessarily make time for me, but but with Steve, and so we're fingers crossed, praying to have him as part of our second year charity drive for autism, because number one, it's all Pokemon related. Number two, he is autistic, and number three, we're going to have this year as uh, to kind of show them how well we can do. And this year is going to be a tremendous one for a first year, and next year having him involved, get his face and his signature on that poster, and like a rocket ship. It's just going to be unbelievable. It might be more money than we can spend, I hope. so so yeah, those two things, the Tokyo Olympics, and I don't know if I should say this or not. I think I've said it publicly before, but I've been pushing, well, quiet. I've been pushing Steve to do a remix of the Pokemon theme song. If I could get him to do a remix of that, and he told me he talked to his team, they got to get licensing and approval. He liked the idea. He didn't say, "Gary, that's stupid," like most of my ideas. He said, "No, this is terrific." He said, "I'm going to check into it." Well, if he can get that, and then if he does get on at the closing ceremonies of the Olympics, and then he plays that song, I swear to God, the earth is going to explode. And so, boy, you talk about being optimistic for the future, for especially optimistic for 2020. Boy, I say hang on.
And what if you haven't started collecting yet? Like, what is your advice for someone who's listening to this podcast? They're getting excited, they're fired up, they're going to run and go look and see what cards they have in the attic, but they want to get back into this hobby. Where do they start? How do they get involved? Because with prices being so high, how do you even do it now?
Yeah, it's hard to go back too far, because of the spike in prices. But I'll tell you something. You and I could run down here to the Target and get packs. D. Bruce was giving packs away at Halloween last night. For the trick or treaters, you can get packs, current day packs. And listen, that's where it all starts, right? That's where it all starts. You still have Pokemon Go. You still have the cartoons. You still have the, the other, things that Pokemon releases. but the cards are available right now down at the corner market. Start with those, fill that set, go back a little bit. You get a little older, get a little better job, get a raise in pay, and then you can go back a little further. Maybe start collecting, from 10 years ago, then 15 years ago, and eventually you go to garage sales and things, and you find older stuff, and it's kind of a progression. Unless you're rich, you can't just buy your way into all that stuff. So I say start with where you are. Start with if you're 20, you probably collected cards from 2010, 2012. Those cards aren't too expensive now. You can make sets. You can get those, get that. So start with your era. If that's too expensive, if you're old like me and it's too expensive, then you collect what's out today. These sets are going to keep coming, and next year is going to be a monster. I would say start collecting today and get the era you can afford. And because I'll tell you something, even though I can't get into them too much because it's so much work, I have so much to do, especially with the charity. I love those new sets. I love the look of the new cards and the new artwork and the how it's done digitally. I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of it. So plus it's what the kids want today. It's what they like. It's what they know. So I think we're in good shape. I think we're in good shape with this, and they have something to collect. Just start with where you can.
And for my final question here, again, I appreciate you sticking with me over our time here. I asked the same question to every person at the end of every podcast. So imagine you have a crystal ball and you can ask this crystal ball any question and you'll get the 100% honest answer. What is one question you'd want to know the answer to?
How many pre-release Clefables how many pre-release Raichus, got out of the Wizards of the Coast factory? I would love to know that. David Person has one. The best, most complete English Pokemon set in the world. He has not a lot of multiples, but the most complete set with trophies. He has one. He says, and I believe him. He's a great guy. I'd like to know how many of those were made. I wouldn't mind having pop reports from all the early Pokemon sets. If I could just ask a question and get an accurate answer, I would want to know. See, it's all Pokemon related. Anything that I could want would be Pokemon related. I would like to have the answers to the early populations too. I know that's kind of a corny, it's not a very significant answer, but it's what comes to mind.
No, that's perfect. I love it. I thought it was going to be who has that third Charizard, but I like that answer too.
Oh, that just gives me a stomach ache thinking about that.
Yeah.
I want that so bad.
Yeah, I bet. And like I said, I hope you find it. I hope it becomes a part of your amazing collection. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today. I want to give you the floor. Where can the people find you? Plug anything and everything you got right now.
Well, I'm being an older guy, I'm not the best at social media. And I didn't have an Instagram until 1 year ago. And now I have like 18,000 followers, which I understand is pretty good for 1 year. So that I because of my reputation, and so that's cool. So on Instagram, I just changed my name last week on Instagram, which I told was a bad idea too, because I've had Gary from Pawn Stars, for a year, and I built up 18,000 followers, and now I wipe it all away and I come up with a different name. But I don't care. I think it's overall a good idea. Now it's Real King Pokemon, one word, Real King Pokemon on Instagram. I have a YouTube with I think 5 videos on it, something like that. I'm not smart enough to know how to get into that and how to do that properly. My camera's turned sideways and that. So yeah, so that I would just say, through and Instagram is probably the only way. But I would sure love to hear from everybody, and I can't tell you how happy. I know I was only going to do a half hour, but I've been having such a good time that I'm glad we took the time to do this. And like I tell everybody, I want us to get together again next year and do it again, to see how many hits and misses we had.
I would love that. I would love
Right.
that. But like I said, I want to thank you once again for taking time to be on this podcast. I appreciate you taking the time. I'll make sure everything's linked in the show notes down below, like I said. So make sure the charity's linked down there, your Instagram's linked down there so people can find you. And I want to thank everybody for listening, whether you've listened the entire way through or you only listen to bits and pieces. I really appreciate you taking time to check this out. Like I said, everyone do me a big favor. Go and follow Gary on Instagram. Make sure to donate to the charity as well. I'll make sure everything's linked in the show notes down below. If you'd like to follow me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @JacobKelly. Feel free to come and say hello. My DMs are always open. As always, this podcast is powered by Trufan. Thank you once again for listening, everybody. We'll talk soon.
Good job, Jacob.